From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. Because, as I say every week, Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. But some of you actually are watching the show on YouTube or Facebook or listening on your favorite podcast. If you are, it's October the 30th, 2023. Where did this year go? We're already into hunting season already. That's pretty amazing to me. I especially want to thank the title sponsor of SuperTalk Outdoors, the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. They're the only outdoor foundation that directly supports the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. They're a dedicated group of volunteer leaders from across the state, and they're doing really, really good work. I want to also remind you that the views on this show are mine, not those of the foundation. But when it comes to outdoors, the outdoors and outdoors issues, you can really count on me to say what needs to be said, and I'm honored to be in this position. Hey, listen, over the weekend, my son Jordan and I had the opportunity to take Bishop Kinnaman. He's the bishop for the Catholic Diocese of Biloxi. He's been fishing with my son Jordan and me for many years. He loves to fish. And, we went out and fished some of the backwaters of coastal Mississippi. And, man, I tell you what, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the fishing in coastal Mississippi right now is literally on fire because of the lack of rain. And, we'll be talking about that more here in just a minute. What that means, though, is that the salt water has moved more into the bays and up into the rivers a bit. And, big speckled trout and redfish and clear water. And it's incredible. I can go on my pier and throw the net and catch shrimp the size of my hand now, and so we'll make 2 or 3 casts and have enough bait to go fishing, and it's just really awesome. And my son Jordan had 2 kids, my grandkids Liam and Mila. They love to get in the boat and go, and they went yesterday, and they just they caught a beautiful redfish, some of the finest speckled trout you've ever seen, and they were gone less than an hour. So it's that time of year in coastal Mississippi. If we don't get a lot of rain here, the fishing in the backwater is really, really tremendous. Have a great show today. We're going to be joined by Bobby Cole from Mossy here in the first segment, and then William McKinley from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks going to join me, and we're going to get up to date on whitetail deer and the program that he's involved in. So without any further ado, let me invite Bobby Cole from Mossy Oak into the conversation. We'll tell you more about what he does at Mossy Oaks here in just a second. But before we go any further, let me just say good afternoon to you, Bobby.
Oh, man, it's great to be here. I'm a big fan of your program.
Well, thank you. We Cuz, as you and I were chatting about during the break, Cuz is kind of a legend now, and I think he's kind of found his mark in this new digital world. I mean, I was a publisher of newspapers and led digital media companies later in my career before I had the opportunity to retire young, and Cuz has done a good job working with his daughter to sort of define Fistful of Dirt in this new media world, and I love what you guys are doing with Gamekeeper podcast and so on. We'll talk about a lot of that, but it's terrific to see the mark that Mossy Oak is making beyond just what you're doing with your business. You want to make a mark in conservation, and I congratulate you guys for doing that.
Well, yeah, and it really comes from the heart. I mean, we all absolutely love the outdoors, whether it's hunting or fishing and so you just can't hide that, and that leads to a lot of interest and trying to do a lot of things the right way and help people and show people, and conservation is kind of at the heart of it. After years of hunting and fishing, you kind of figure out conservation is so important, and giving back is so important, and that's kind of where a lot of us are.
Well, you've been with Mossy Oak going on 30 years.
Yes, sir. Boy, time flies. It has been that long.
That is incredible. Of course, I've had really terrific visits with Toxie on the show and his sons, And it's been great forming a relationship with Mossy Oaks over the past couple of years as I've come into this show. But I believe, as you guys believe at Mossy Oak, that one of the most important legacies we're going to leave. I mean, it's certainly the foundation, who is a major sponsor of this show. I mean, they're if you look at their brand promise, it's they're protecting Mississippi's outdoor legacy. I mean, this legacy, and I'm not kidding when I talk about this being the capital of the outdoors. I know that Mossy Oak does work all over the United States and certainly maybe even around the world for that matter. But Mississippi has a terrific claim to make when I say we're the capital of the outdoors, because you think about the Delta and you think about turkey hunting, and you think about offshore fishing in coastal Mississippi, the backwater fishing that I was just talking about, that's some of the best in the nation. We've got a lot to protect here. And I actually came across a quote from Muhammad Ali. In fact, I have a little history book I get each morning. And in October 1974 was the Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman. But Muhammad Ali said this along the way, that service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. I love that, man. That kind of fits what we're here to do, isn't it? Doesn't it? Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a deep thought when you kind of really dive into it, but it's spot on, and it's interesting you ran across that today. I think I mentioned earlier conservation and how important that is, and the word serve plays a big role in the word conservation, and so I think it's just important that all of us, as we go through our journey in the outdoors, we all start off just wanting to be successful, and then you want to harvest a bunch of something, and then you want to take others, and then so we're saying that there's another stage in life, and that's being a gamekeeper, and that's giving back, and sharing your experiences with others, and just trying to make your place, whether you own it or you lease it or you rent it or you just have permission to go there, but doing your part to make it better.
Well, Aldo Leopold, we all know him well, but when he said conservation is a state of harmony between men and land, he meant it, and he said it from the heart and from his soul. And this whole notion of gamekeeper, I think really hits it on. We get more wise. We get more wise the more time we spend in the outdoors. And you start out, you're happy to see a deer, and then you're happy to see a buck, and then you start to appreciate what constitutes a big buck and a mature buck, and then you start focusing more on the land and what it takes to take care of the land, and it's a journey. I think, and I often say that the more we learn, the more we better learn how much we don't know. That life is a journey of learning, and it keeps us humble. And when we're in the outdoors, man, we better be humble, because there's a lot to learn. And if you look at the Gamekeeper podcast you have, or your website, you guys are really focused on teaching people how to conserve.
Yeah, we are, and I appreciate you noticing that. It's kind of at the core of everything that we're doing. We're trying to entertain and inform, and so often today, people are caught up in trying to kill the biggest deer, or make sure they get their limit of turkeys, or always get a limit of ducks, and that's fine. I mean, that's a part of the whole process, but we're saying that there's so much more to it than that. And the enjoyment you get out of taking somebody and, a youngster, and seeing their face light up when as they participate in the sport, it's so rewarding. And we're also, we learned that, gosh, we can be on our property 12 months out of the year, and there are things that we can do to improve the habitat, improve the hunting, improve the fishing, and it's so rewarding. And we're finding out it's even more rewarding than harvesting that big deer. It's to grow that big deer and know that he's there. And it's kind of hard to put into words, Ricky. I can tell that you get it
out
in your head, but it's so satisfying to be a gamekeeper and take ownership of taking care of a property. It's very rewarding.
Hey, listen, You heard me mention at the beginning of the show, and certainly it has permeated every conversation I've had on this show for the past, unfortunately, several months. But the drought in Mississippi, I actually went. There's actually a website called drought.gov, and you can go in and start looking at what they're sort of where Mississippi stands in terms of the lack of rain, and by county. You can look at what the projections are for the rain that we're going to be getting. Now look, it's an El Nino year, and we're supposed to be cooler and wetter. Once it starts to rain, it's supposed to rain more than we would normally see. But the reality is we're so far behind. I mean, it's just incredibly far behind. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about the drought, the impact it's having on food plots across the state of Mississippi, and kind of what you're hearing people say as we continue this conversation with our friend Bobby Cole, who is with Mossy. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend Bobby Cole from Mossy Oaks. He's with sort of the Gamekeeper brand of Mossy Oaks. He's done a lot of different stuff since he's been there. You probably have heard him on the Gamekeeper podcast, which we'll talk about here in just a second. When we went to break, we're talking about the drought. One of the things that I noticed on this website I just mentioned to you, this is like the 13th worst drought that we have seen in Mississippi. And it comes at a bad time because there's a lot of seeds in the ground right now. And if the seed's sitting in powder, in fact, my farmer friend Travis Dunn actually referred to as baby powder the other day. That's what the Delta gumbo mud has become. If it's sitting, no harm. But if it gets a little bit hold and gets a little bit of germination, and then we get 10 more days of hot, unrelenting dry conditions, that's not going to be good. But everybody's talking about it, aren't they, my friend?
Yeah, they are. We're watching. There's a weather system coming through right now, and it's supposed to hit where I am about noon, and we're all just cheering for it to get here, and we're praying that it's going to drop more than 1/10 of an inch. That's what they're expecting, and 1/10 of an inch is just it's enough to settle the dust. You worry about whether it'll make those seeds germinate and then sit here and struggle for the next 10 or 15 days. The seeds that are up, what's been planted, it's kind of in the shadier areas of fields. We're seeing some of that is kind of just hanging on. And so 1/10 of an inch might be enough to keep it hanging on. We're just in a bad situation. We're waiting on the acres to start dropping. If you're a deer right now in the southeast, it's a really tough time. It's a tough time. So as gamekeepers, it's important that we have been preparing for stuff like this, and it's hard to do that. But I'm not sure what a guy can do when you've got one of the worst droughts that anybody can remember.
Yeah, I tell you, as I was mentioning to you off the air, and then I've talked about here on the show, we tested last year drilling seeds, and we did, I would say more than half of our food plots that way, and it performed really well. And so this year we did everyone we could get to, we drilled the seeds. And where we drilled seeds, I guess it got sufficiently deep enough. We've had decent germination, and the morning dew, I think, has helped in those scenarios. Where we did old school on about 5 different plots, obviously no germination at this point, just lots of sitting in, as I mentioned, the powder. You worry a little bit that this is just enough rain to cause a little bit of germination, and that would not be a good thing. It is interesting. When especially in the Mississippi Delta, but this is going to be true everywhere across the state of Mississippi, the reality is that you've got a situation where there's just literally the water table is so low. In some of the areas where we usually have standing water year round, they're dry as a bone. And there may be a couple of spots where there's just holding a little bit of water. And in those spots that are holding a little bit of water, you can tell that the deer have been going to that like crazy because we just don't have water in places where we need it. But you get 1/10 of an inch of rain, and you can literally hear the sucking sound as it's just getting drawn down. And within a half a day, it's going to be dust again. That's not the best scenario. We need inches and inches of rain.
Yeah, we really do. And the native vegetation is suffering as well. If you walk out in the woods, you'll see browse lines and I mean, as I'm beginning this weekend, I found a few oak trees that were starting to drop, and boy, the deer pounding those.
Yeah.
But it's a tough time to be a deer right now.
Yeah, we one of the farms that we lease is literally a tree farm, and it's about 7 or 8 years old in terms of the new plan, with about 5 different types of nut bearing trees. And they're dropping a lot of acorns and whatever at this stage of the game. So the deer have a lot to eat. In fact, as William McKinley will point out here in just a second when he joins us, that those big bucks, they don't have to roam around too much. If they're in an area they've got some water nearby and they've got plenty of acorns, they're going to just kind of hang out. But if you don't have acorns right now and you don't have water, again, we'll talk to William more about this. It'd be interesting to see how deer are dealing with that situation. Usually, they would have good browse that would be brought to them by good rains. We don't have good rain, so we don't have the good browse, and we certainly don't have food plots growing across the state like we normally do. It's going to make for an interesting deer season, that's for sure.
You mentioned earlier that this was the 13th worst drought. When I talk to people up here, they say it's the worst one that they can remember. When were the other 12?
I don't know. I didn't look. That just came out that drought.gov website. But hey, listen, you guys have done a great job with your Gamekeeper. We've got Gamekeeper magazine, of course, TV show, the podcast. Podcast is terrific, man. I listen on Spotify, and you got a wide variety of guests, and you guys just kind of get around. It's kind of unscripted, and you talk about, whatever the topic is of the day. But y'all have had a lot of fun with that, haven't you?
We really have, and because we've got Lanny Wallace, Toxie joins us, Dudley. We've got an eclectic group of guys that have a bunch of different interests, and then we're able to get some great guests, and we just sit around and learn from them. That's our whole mentality, is to we ask questions that we want to know about, and so it has been really interesting. To me, I just really look forward to them. They come out every Tuesday, the Gamekeeper podcast. I'm just really proud of them. And I know a guy can listen and learn something that he can go apply to his own hunting property.
Well, I'll give you an example. The one actually that I listened to this morning was the conversation with Ben Rising. And he's with Whitetail Edge. But it was about mature buck strategies. It was episode number 188. So, 188. If you go down, you got bow hunting strategies with Brody Swisher, and serious about squirrels. One, managing whitetail with Dr. Craig Harper, the tree man Chuck Level, and I mean the list just goes on and on. I mean, just a wide variety. So if people have a thought about something they want to learn more about, it'd be easy just to take your thumb and run down here, and you will find the topic you want to hear about. And that's the goal, isn't it? You guys want to just cover a lot of territory.
We do, and it's fishing as well. We do a lot of pond management stuff. We've had this young lady from North Alabama that's trying to grow a world record bluegill. We've had her on a time or two, and that's a really interesting listen to hear what some biologists are helping her do. They're growing. She's got some bluegill that are over 3 pounds right now. So we're pretty diverse in what we're talking about.
That's Sarah Parvin, for a matter of fact, and I enjoyed that podcast, and I thought it was cool. She calls her lab the Slab Lab,
That's
which
right.
I thought was kind of the perfect description for if you want to grow big bluegill. That's what you want to be called. That's for sure. And you have a lot of fun doing it, man. It's cool that you guys sit around about something you're passionate about.
Well, we do. So the TV show kind of. Excuse me there. So the TV show mirrors the podcast, and then the podcast mirrors the TV show. So every Tuesday night on the Outdoor Channel, we have the best of the podcast that have been turned into a television show, and then every Tuesday morning we release a new podcast. So it's a big challenge to try and find some new interesting way to discuss some of the previously discussed topics, but that's kind of the challenge of what we're trying to do. But we're accepting that challenge and working really hard. There's a lot of interesting people in the outdoors to talk to and get their points of view. and we can all learn from them. That's for sure.
Well, what's interesting, and I've obviously opened the show like this when we had Toxie on, but the role that Mossy plays, and I think about Primos, and I think about other companies that are Mississippi companies. You have a responsibility when you communicate to the rest of the world. You've become ambassadors for Mississippi. And you've put a big time anchor down in the West Point area. You feel that responsibility, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Look, I'll be honest. There have been podcasts that we've said we can't release this. That's not good for hunting or good for the outdoors at all. So we're very careful to make sure the message that we communicate is very positive and sustainable. And is the message that we want to communicate out there. And it's not necessarily a message that sells product, but it tells people the right way to behave and the right way to live their lives and the right way to participate in the outdoors.
Well, it's so. I tell you, I've always believed that if you have an enduring core value in a company, that you're building a company that is ultimately built to last. And you think about the evolution of this company since Toxie founded it and where it is today and how it's being driven by these enduring principles around conservation. You can't lose, and it's a company that Mississippians ought to be terribly proud of. But hey, listen, we're out of time for the day, Bobby. But I'm gonna have you back soon, and we'll talk more about a long list of things, including your entire journey at Mossy. I'd like to hear more about that too.
Yeah, no, Ricky, thank you. We appreciate what you do for the outdoors in Mississippi, and we're just big fans. And so, thank you for giving us this chance. And I invite people to come listen to the Gamekeeper podcast and Fistful of Dirt when they get a chance.
You bet. You bet. Hey, listen, when we come back, we'll be joined by William McKinley, head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. We'll see you after this.